And we are back on Boles.tv, BOLES.tv, in case you're watching with captions on. I'm David Boles. Jana Marie's getting ready to perform. She's putting the final touches on her song she's going to share with you, and I will tell you again, it's very darling. I hope she will have a sing-along. I don't know if it's possible. I've asked, but I've told it's a surprise. I'm not allowed to say. There's Ellie! Oh my goodness. Good morning, Ellie. It's so wonderful to have you here. Ellie is a star student, and we're so happy to have her here with us today. A star student of Jana Marie's. And on that topic of disability in performance, really disturbing news came out yesterday that is actually the perfect introduction to what's about to happen with the beautiful Jana Marie Sweetheart. And I'm just going to use this as an introduction. Meredith Wilson, in, I believe, 1957, wrote The Music Man. There's Ellie again. Thank you. So grateful to be here. We're so happy to have you here, Ellie. You're a star student. You're a wonderful person. And you are a great addition to chat when you're able to be here. And I know you're very busy and very smart. So The Music Man, I believe, was written in 1957. It has been performed probably, I would say conservatively, 10,000 times in community theaters and theaters all across the world, especially in the United States. And Meredith Wilson is a super duper genius. He was on talk shows and chat shows, and he knew how to write a melody, and he knew how to write a show. And he was born in Iowa. Wonderful guy. His show, Music Man, came out at the same time as West Side Story hit the Broadway stage. Can you imagine having both of those hit shows in the same year, the same season? And then, as time and tide goes on, we find out this came out yesterday. As Broadway prepares to welcome a revival of Meredith Wilson's The Music Man, starring Hollywood super-duper star Wolverine Hugh Jackman later this month, newly discovered drafts have revealed that Meredith Wilson faced a 3-year struggle to write the show about Jim Paru, a young boy in a wheelchair who was driven out of several towns in Midwest America and cruelly taunted because of his inability to speak or walk. That's what The Music Man was about originally. That was Meredith Wilson's genius idea in 1957. Until just 10 months before the musical opened on Broadway for the first time in 1957, the cornerstone of the plot of The Music Man was going to portray how the titular music man, Harold Hill, challenged the community's bigotry and integrated Jim into a newly formed boys band. However, the plot was seen as too proactive for Broadway in the 1950s, a genre that promoted athletic bodies performing complex dance moves, as both friends and people involved in the show's production put pressure on Wilson to drop the idea, even though they acknowledged it was worthy. Meredith Wilson strongly believed that the stigmatization of young people with disabilities was a major problem in society that needed to be challenged, and he saw this as something he could do through the medium of the Broadway musical. His idea to put a young disabled boy as the main character in The Music Man was provocative. Broadway writers of the mid-20th century had tried to turn their attention to important social themes of the day, but ableism had not been tackled like that before. What I've discovered from the drafts, as well as materials from Wilson's life, is that this was just too much for Broadway in the 1950s. Broadway's emphasis on spectacle, and we talked about that before, Aristotle's Poetics, plot, character, thought, diction, music, spectacle. Spectacle is the last part of the process. It's not a pyramid. Broadway's emphasis on spectacle and normativity meant that Wilson was pressured into changing the show's plot into what we know it today, erasing what could have been a much-loved, famous, disabled Broadway character. Dora, such a great story, and what a wonderful person he was. Meredith Wilson was just a terrific guy, very talented. And he tried to do the right thing. And you know who told him he couldn't do it? The producers. They said, we can't sell a ticket about disabled people. What's wrong? No one wants to see that. And there was Meredith Wilson's earliest show. He didn't have a hit. If he had written a hit show before and he had the muscle in the industry to say, we're doing it this way, it would have been fine. But they scared him off. And in the end, it didn't happen. And in some ways, it damns the producers, and in some ways, it damns Meredith Wilson as well. Because he did not stand up for what he knew was right. He did not stand up for the story he wanted to tell. He let other people take control of his artistic vision. And can you imagine how Broadway, how the world would be different if for the last 60 years, we had 10,000 performances of a young disabled boy named Jim Paru in The Music Man as the center and the star of the show? How would history have been changed? The revival of Oklahoma we had a couple of years ago where, oh my gosh, Laurie's in a wheelchair, can you imagine? Now that was pasted and put into the show by the director and the creative team that did that revival. That wasn't originally a part of Oklahoma, they made it a part of Oklahoma. They forced in the disability. Whereas Meredith Wilson 60 years ago had it part of his show. You don't have to write it in, you don't have to make it about disability. It was there, it was on the page. The miracle worker, Helen Keller story. Can you imagine if we had a deaf-blind performer in that role? No. We have to have stars. They have to be hearing. And the miracle worker isn't even about Helen Keller. It's not her story. Whose story is it? Anne Sullivan's story. How do we know? The title of the play. The miracle worker is not Helen Keller. The miracle worker is Anne Sullivan. So you read this and you wonder just what might have been. And the only person who could have made this happen was Meredith Wilson. When Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky, for 2 years, people wanted to buy and make that movie. And Sylvester Stallone said, that's fine, but I want to play Rocky. And they said, oh, God, you can't play Rocky. You're ugly. You have an accent. You're not playing Rocky. And Sylvester Stallone said, fine, you're not making my movie. So like him or not, Sylvester Stallone stood up for what he believed in, which just happened to be himself, whereas Meredith Wilson did not stand up for what he believed in. He let money and pressure change forever the history and the future of the American Broadway musical. And on that light note, we're going to take a brief break as we get all set up for the beautiful and talented Jana Marie Sweetheart, who's going to be here teaching and performing with you in just a moment. Stand by.